Hello, my excited Livy pals. Welcome to another episode of the Almondview podcast with myself, Jake Poynter, my co-host Lovelly Bet.
Hello.
Our handsome panellists, Thomas Frow, Owen Innes, and Mr. Stephen Povey.
Hello.
Hello there.
Hello.
And we are once again brought to you in association with After Extra Time Shirts, so make sure you check them out on Twitter at AET Shirts.
This week is all about the League Cup final. We'll talk about our favourite moments from the Betfred Cup campaign so far, as well as chatting to Danny from the Dogger Saints podcast about what those pesky Perth pricks think of their chances against the Amber Machine on Sunday.
We also chat all things CIS Cup with Scotland's most underrated goalkeeper, Roddy McKenzie, and we'll be looking back at our memories of that momentous day in 2004 against the Hibs.
So get your 2003-04 Livingston top down from the loft, jump into the DeLorean, get that baby up to 8 to 8 mile an hour, and come on a journey through the space-time continuum to Nostalgia City with us here at the Almondview podcast.
The Betfred Cup final is upon us. 17 years in the making and we're back. But hey, let's not look forward just yet. Let's look back at our favourite moments of the Betfred Cup so far. Thomas, what had your juices flowing through this campaign?
So I'm going to talk about the demolition of Edinburgh City Football Club. Obviously a bit of a local rival. Probably one of the better teams in the Lothians, to be honest. And going back to the Meadowbank days, very, very local rival. But I just want to call out their pay-per-view team at Edinburgh City. If you're listening, I'm going to call you out directly. What an atrocious experience watching that game was. I paid £10 to watch this game where we saw two goals from Josh Mullen after he just returned, just signed again. It was a brilliant, brilliant game. And I think I saw about one frame every 8 seconds. I could not see anything in this game. I was also sat outside as well because I was watching my missus play football in the cold at the stadium, watching Livingston win, but I got about 8 frames of the game. So an excellent win, and it set us up really well. But a truly appalling pay-per-view service. You should be ashamed of yourselves, Edinburgh City.
Can I come in on that? So that game, I was probably the saddest person in the world. Not alone, by the way, with Jordan Rind. We actually went through to Ainsley Park to watch the game, and we just kept trying to find different wee holes in the fences to see if we could actually see in. And I think we were successful in the first half because of where the goal we were shooting into. But then the second half, we spent the entire second half stood on this just random plank of wood behind the dugouts, trying to peer over this sheet that they had on the fence to stop folk from watching in. But yeah, that was, even though I was going through all that, it was probably still a more enjoyable experience than having to watch it on the on the pay-per-view, because the group chat was just going mental, this is shite, this is shite, this is shite. So yeah, and then after the game, we started clapping and trying to sing Livy songs and that, and Gary Holt and Davy Martindale just completely pied us, even though they could clearly hear every word that we were saying.
Moving on, Owen.
I'm going to sort of kind of agree with Thomas. First of all, I've kind of got 2 points to make. But so first of all, but my point about Stenhouse, I thought Stenhousemuir's was worse. At least the camera followed the ball with Edinburgh City. Stenhousemuir followed fucking David Martindale's bald head for the entire game. It was fucking atrocious, and yeah. But my main point, my favourite part of the whole Betfred Cup campaign this season was the group stage. The whole group stage was brilliant. Robbo scoring the first goal of the competition, and then scoring, of course, in the semi-final to get us through to the final. But 5 games in the group stage, 19 goals scored, 3 conceded. Fair enough. A lot of that was against lower league opposition, Edinburgh City, Airdrie and stuff like that. Alloa gave us a wee bit of a scare. That was the lowest scoring game at 2-1. But, most other goals, we scored 4 or more goals, which I think is just incredible for Livingston. We tend, in the league, we tend to not see us score that many goals. So it was just good to be able to go through a campaign and actually score some goals. We saw goals from Forrest, Mullen, of course, Robbo, Lacoche. So it was great to see just goals just coming in from absolutely everywhere. At no point did any of us ever think, well, I certainly didn't think throughout the whole Betfred Cup group stage that we would now be sitting here talking about not potentially, being in a final this coming Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my memory is just an absolutely brilliant start to the season going through the Betfred Cup.
I think you're right in that was the only bit of shining light in the season. What was happening at the early part of the season, the league was so awful for the majority of that. So it was only shining light. And I'm going to pick up on one of the points you made there. My sort of highlight would be Mr. Alan Forrest. How he's a top scorer out of the whole competition so far. And, he scored, as you say, scored against Alloa, 2 goals against Steny, 2 goals against Airdrie, scored in the second round against Ayr in that 4-0 win, scored a tap-in against County in the quarter-final. I think, honestly, I would like to see Alan Forrest feature in the final. I'm not saying start, because the starting 11 against St Mirren for me is probably who I would like to see start, but I would certainly like Forrest to feature, because just for so many reasons, all those goals he scored, he's pitched in, and I don't know. Plus, his brother scored in so many League Cup finals for Celtic. I don't know. I think I can see him doing sort of damage against St Johnstone in similar way. I don't know. I can foresee it. I can see Forrest is going to score on Sunday. There we are.
Aye,
and he'll finish top scorer of the tourney. So Golden Boot boy.
Liam, what's your experience?
Just sort of echoing what everyone else is saying, especially considering how shit the start of the season was in the league. As Povey said, you had that sort of glimmer of hope that we could score goals, and the goals were coming from all over the pitch. I think the game that sort of sticks out or two are the Ayr United game that we won 4-0, because, and I know this sort of sounds horrible, but if Gary Holt was in charge, I reckon we would have lost that. Because the team just looked so dejected. There was just nothing about them. He resigns. The team get a kick up the arse, and we're 4-0 up after 25 minutes or something. Mm-hmm. And even the best part about that was Jack Fitzwater getting 2 goals, because he'd got slaughtered. And not rightly so, but I guess fairly so, because of how poor he was at the start of the season. But then that sort of kicked him on, and then ever since then, maybe apart from the Dundee United game the other week, he's sort of not looked back. Forrest still getting amongst the goals that day, and it sort of gave Josh Mullen as well, the whole Betfred Cup campaign, a real sort of springboard to show that he was still going to be a key player when he re-signed, because we've picked up on it before. He just wasn't starting in the league. They would play him in the Betfred Cup, he would score, and he would set up goals. And then the following week, he wouldn't be even on the bench for the league game. So it just seemed a bit strange. And then the other one was the Ross County game. I think, again, sad as anything, but I'm bringing Jake down to my level because he was there as well. But standing with Tins on the hill, watching Craig Sibbald and Alan Forrest score. Second half is pish, but it was amazing, because it was just before Christmas. Everyone was buzzing up in the hill. Tinnies, the dream. So aye, those are the two best moments I think from the Betfred Cup so far. Hopefully,
Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to continue on from that and just talk about that Ross County game. So aye, this hill is absolutely mocket, by the way. Like there's no glass, no grass. There probably was glass. A lot of smashed out probs. There's no grass at all, and we're all just like, if you stood in one position for too long, you actually sunk completely into the ground. And the problem is obviously because you know where the stadium is, you have to go to one side to only see one goal, and then you shift over to the other. And another weird story of that night: someone got broken into at the house right beside the stadium. Right, so I don't even know if you guys even know this. It was like, so we're just standing there watching, and then this security guard from the stadium runs over. It's like, runs over because some guy had tried to climb up the drain pipe into someone's house right beside the Lovelly Stadium, and then the drain pipe's cracked off, and the security guard's just going over and smashed them. A few of the boys went over to help and stuff like that. The guy, I think he was, don't think he was in a very good way afterwards. So that happened, and then Livy went through, but. Aye, loads of tins, great night, but it was such a weird experience.
What about our goalie situation then? Take your pick.
Has to be Max.
Max,
as much as I was bigging up McCrory, he played all right on Saturday, but it's just the way, I don't know, there's just still that uncertainty around him. Max has looked shaky. Aye, in terms of kicking and stuff, Max has been pish, the past few weeks.
Definitely.
But in terms of coming for crosses, commanding his area, he's still, I think, the better option out of the two.
Yeah, I agree.
For me, the reason I picked Max is because he's proven he can handle himself in big game situations. St Mirren obviously being one. But look right back at early in the season when Holt was there. He played a blinder against Rangers. You know, he's got it. He's got it in us for the big games. So for me, Max.
We're now joined on the line by Danny from the Dogger Saints podcast to chat a wee bit about the final from a pesky Perth prick perspective. Danny, how you doing?
I'm all right, mate. I'm glad you managed to get those 4 Ps out there.
So we just wanted to sort of get the vibe from the St Johnstone side of things, because obviously we've been just chatting nothing about the final since the semi-final back in January or whenever it was. So what are the fans doing around the city, and even a personal perspective, what you're doing different? Because obviously it's not a regular cup final, no fans are there, so he's doing anything to bring a wee bit of cup final vibes to the city.
Yeah, the town's really got behind it. My day job, I work for the council, and they've made a big effort. You know, at the end of the day, it's ultimately just shite that we're not going to be able to be there. And, same for both sides, really, because these days don't come around very often for either team. But, yeah, I mean, it's been a whole bit of a collective thing. The council's made a big effort sort of around the town with projections, which unfortunately not many people can see because we're all staying at home. But and sort of local businesses, the club's done an awful lot. They've flogged every bit of merch possible, I think. So no, it's been a real big effort. As I say, everyone's just it's all just tinged with sort of being gutted that we're not all going to be on our way to Hampden on Sunday. But there's bigger things at play at the minute. So it's been nice that the town sort of come out and made a big effort. We don't have much to get excited about in Perth, I should say, so it's probably all natural.
So, just sort of touching again on the final, obviously we're not going to be there, but one of the big things that St Johnstone and Livy are sort of got in common is that we get ripped all the time for having small numbers at the stadium, right? So, obviously you guys had your cup final, Scottish Cup win in 2014. There must have been, I don't know, a good sort of 20-odd thousand there.
Oh, the whole town came out, man.
Yeah, so we were chatting and saying we probably wouldn't expect any more than 5,000 from Livingston at a push. So, but what would you think? Do you think the whole town would again come out and really get behind the team?
Yeah, I think they would do, mate. Absolutely. You look at Parkhead in 2014, it's just astonishing. I mean, there's people there, and it happens with cup finals, particularly when you're sort of a team that doesn't get many through the gates on a Saturday. But the whole, people might go to one game in their life or one game all season or every 10 years or whatever. And it'll be the cup final. And so I think people would have come out. Maybe we wouldn't have got the sort of numbers that were at Parkhead in 2014, but I think it would have been a fairly sizable amount. I think you probably would have been looking sort of maybe around 15,000 folk, because obviously Perth's not got a huge population, but sort of the surrounding areas are a bit sort of bigger. Lots of Saints fans out in the sort of Shire and stuff like that. So, I mean, which is maybe what you guys, Livy, maybe don't have, because obviously our nearest place is sort of Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Which have got two showers of gobshites there already. So,
So in terms of like sort of recent form, going into the semi-final, for you guys, you weren't on horrific form, but you weren't on great form. Livy were on amazing form, and that sort of like switched. So, and in particular, you beat us 2-1 a couple of weeks ago. So, do you think that win against Livingston will come into the game on Sunday?
I'll qualify this. I think it'll come into it in sort of Callum Davidson's approach to the game and his team selection, because he's been flitting about between two formations all season. He was sort of playing this thing where he had three at the back and then two wing backs, a couple in midfield, two wingers, and then Chris Kane up front on his own. Whereas at the Almondview and at Motherwell on Saturday, he had the two up front, and it's sort of been working really well. He played it at Tannadice as well. So I think the fact that it did work, even though Kane and Melamed didn't get on the score sheet away at Livy, I think that'll probably factor into that. So, yeah, I mean, but Livy, I still think, even though the last couple of games probably haven't gone as well as you have been doing, yeah, it's not like, from what I've seen, Ben Magnus is probably on the sports scene, really. It doesn't look like it's been a dramatic dip in performance so much. It's just been, the results have been going the other way.
I don't know if you watched the Livingston St Mirren game, but when you heard the score, what were your initial thoughts? Were you like, fucking brilliant, yes, that'll do? Or were you a bit like, oh shit, I would have preferred St Mirren?
Probably a little bit towards the latter. To be honest with you, I was really, really glad we avoided you in the semi-final. I was delighted, because we tend to pull an absolute stinker against you lot. We've put in some absolute dog shit performances against you in the last since you came back up.
Yeah.
So I was quite glad. And Hibs, who on paper the strongest side out of the four, but yeah, they were. I mean, I fancied us more against Hibs than I would have done against yourselves. St Mirren, I wasn't that fussed about either way. I think they're pretty similar to us, but I thought then, it was going to be. Well, I still think it's going to be a very tight, intensive game, or it could go either way, really. So, yeah, I would have probably, with the greatest respect to St Mirren, who are having a very good season, I would have preferred them.
Last question. If you were to put your neck on the line and give us a score prediction for the game, what are you thinking?
Well, I can be honest on here. You know what? I think there's going to be a goal in it either way. I'm going to have to say Saints will win it, because, I've got to. But I think it's going to be 2-1 either way. I actually think it could go further than 90 minutes. I think we could be looking at extra time, but because the sides are so closely matched, and I think it's two good managers. I think two pretty closely matched and decent sets of players. Obviously, a few injury doubts on either side. Robinson for you guys and Davidson and Wotherspoon for us. So, I mean, even that, something as simple as that could be what decides it. It's going to be that tight, but yeah, 2-1 Saints. I say with, fingers crossed.
Nah, fair play. You're wrong, but fair play.
Oh, yeah. I usually am, pal. I usually am.
But cheers for that, man. That's much appreciated. Like, thanks for coming
cheers,
on.
Danny, man.
No, that's brilliant, boys. Really enjoyed that.
Cheers, man. Enjoy the game, man.
Yeah, I was going to say, have a good day on Sunday, boys.
It's another week and yet another absolutely golden guest here on the Almondview podcast. He may have already answered all your questions for that other mob, but why should they get all the fun? He's the first goalkeeper we've had on, and arguably one of the greatest in the club's history. It's Mr. Shovelhorns himself, a man with more clean sheets than the wee fairy liquid baby. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Mr. Roddy McKenzie.
Hey! Hi guys, how are we? All right?
Oh, good.
How are you, Roddy?
It's great to be sort of brought out of the closet twice in 1 week, so I don't mind that.
Quality. Right, let's dive in, shall we? You came through the youth ranks in 1993 with the Lothians' current lowest ranking team, Heart. But you had a spell on loan in 1995 with Stenhousemuir, where you lifted the Challenge Cup in a shock penalty shootout win against Dundee United. What was it like having that instant success at a lone club like as small as sort of Stenhousemuir in your first season of regular football?
It was amazing because I think when I was at Hearts, I was 6th choice goalkeeper. You know, it was different back in the day where you carried a lot of goalkeepers. Youth team could take all these players, and you know, it was a bit of luck more than anything how I managed to get to Stenhousemuir and loan. Eamon Barron was at Hearts, and he knew Terry Christie, and Terry needed a goalkeeper for Stenhousemuir, and it was just during pre-season, and I had a game in the afternoon the day before, and I got injured. I twisted my ankle, and then Eamon Barron had said to me, "Listen, Terry Christie wants you to play in this game, a wee trial game for Stenhousemuir." I'm like, oh my goodness, that's fine, okay. So I somehow managed to scrape myself together. My mate drove me up to Stirling, didn't have a clue where Stenhousemuir was, absolutely no idea, middle of nowhere. Managed to get to play against Hibs in a wee friendly, pre-season friendly. Done really well, and Terry Christie, they wanted to sign me. And, you know, that was just a wee bit of fortune at that time, because it was between me and another goalkeeper, Miles Hogarth, at the time, about who was going to go. And Miles was a wee bit older, so he could still sort of play in the reserves and things like that. I thought, do you know what, that's a great opportunity. And, you know, having people like Eamon Bannon, George McGeeky, Adrian Sprott, you know, all these experienced players at a lower level, it was great because you learned as a young goalkeeper. See, if you made a mistake, you got absolutely slaughtered, and that was it. So you had to become a man in a lower division team, and it was a great experience. It really was. And the cup final that year was just something that just topped it off as well. You know.
I mean, I watched the highlights of it, and the Stenhousemuir stand was absolutely packed. But like the team that Dundee United had that day, they had like 4 guys that won the Scottish Cup for them the year before. So what was it like being proper underdogs in that game? As
a team, you know, we knew we had good ability, and we knew we could be solid at the back, and all the pressure was on Dundee United. You know, they had some fantastic players, and it was great later on in my career to actually play with some of the guys throughout my different clubs, and it was great to slag them off about how we beat them. And then having Billy Kirkwood, who was a manager at Dundee United, then come to Livingston. It was great because I eventually slagged off near enough every Dundee United player I've ever known for that single game. And I've never had a game like it in my life. That was the only game I could probably say, I did everything right in that game.
So after the loan spell, you went back to Hearts, and you stayed there until 2003. I've spoken to a few Hearts fans that were sort of big fans of yours coming up through the ranks, but they just said that you were unfortunate because they had this golden age of goalkeepers. What was it like sort of dealing with that, like seeing that Hearts were just constantly signing goalkeepers, and like were you just thinking, like, what do I actually have to do to break into this team?
You know, I went back to Hearts and ended up being 2nd choice keeper after being at Stenhousemuir, and Jim Jeffries was great. You know, he gave me a lot of confidence. He said, you know, Gilles is the main man. He has been for a few years, and I understood that. He was an experienced goalkeeper, and you know, at that time I was only maybe 21. You know, you're looking to get your opportunity when it came along and take your chance, but knowing that something's going to have to happen for you to stay in that team, and that would have to be an injury long term, and then you get an opportunity. And, that never quite happened for me at that time. And, but I still learned loads, and that was the thing. When I always had my opportunity, I always felt I did all right. I don't think we were lucky going through sort of 96, 97, 98, 99. That was a great period of time. Hearts were winning cups, they were in cup finals all the time, and you were constantly under pressure to perform, And I just felt that then Anthony Niemi came along, and you're stuck behind ultimately 2 international goalkeepers. And it's difficult because probably 2 of the best goalkeepers that the club has ever had. If you look at, the period before sort of 95 with Henry Smith and Nicky Walker. Pardon me, but these guys were at another level again. And that's not being disrespectful to Henry or Nicky. And it's hard because I imagine if you've signed an international goalkeeper, they're always going to play. And you've got to accept that being a sub-goalkeeper and just take your opportunities when it comes along. And, it's I probably, the most disappointing thing for me at Hearts was I probably just didn't play enough games. And that was ultimately why I left. I just thought, what, it's time to go and play and try and make my own career as a first-choice goalkeeper,
As you said, in 2003, you darted along the M8 to join the fastest growing club in the Lothian region, the mighty Livingston FC. They explained in the interview with the other mob how the move came about, but what were your preconceptions of Livingston before joining? Because we'd had this rapid rise to the SPL in less than 10 years, so was there any sort of excitement joining a club like that, or were people trying to warn you away from joining a club that's clearly just...
No, not at all. Nobody warned me away. I think you've been to the ground loads of times. It's a fantastic place. It really is. As a stadium being dropped into a city centre type thing, having a wee training facility beside it, it was great. It wasn't far away. It meant I didn't have to travel through Edinburgh every day and, save myself a few quid in the old petrol money. But fantastic. It was great. And then, there's a great bunch of guys. I knew a few of them. I knew Jim Leishman a wee bit. I knew Roy Baines as well. He'd always been somebody who, even when I was at Hearts, he always spoke to me all the time, said I was doing really well. It was a great game I played 2 weeks ago when he saw me. And, that's always good because then you remember all those wee things. You think, I quite fancy working with these guys and seeing what it's all about. And I felt it was a great move for me, even though at the time, obviously, Alan Main was the first choice. And I thought, what? So what? Alan Main, great goalkeeper. He's coming to end his career a wee bit. He's getting a wee bit older. And, just things worked out great at the time when I moved. And I don't think I ever really looked back in that season. And everyone at the club made you feel so welcome. We Danny the kit man that I had known since I was a 10-year-old when he was one of the wee managers at Mill United. When I started out as a boy, And so there's loads of these things that players are drawn to clubs and they kind of like the atmosphere. And for me, I think getting into a club is it's got to be fun as well. You've got to feel as if there's an element of fun in that club as well, because that's ultimately what gets people excited and fans excited. If it's dull, if it's boring, forget it. You're not going to get players signing for you.
You came into the club when they were transitioning from Jim Leishman and Davy Hay into Marcio Maximo's tenure. We've discussed him with a few of your ex-teammates and they've all come back and said, nice guy, but completely out his depth. A couple of them mentioned that there was training with tennis balls and that. So how much of the training were you involved with in terms of was he shooting tennis balls at you or that? Or
no, nothing. My coaching was, I don't think Alan Main, when he was there, he would never have accepted that kind of training. Roy Baines was a bit old school. He loved training, he loved working the goalies hard. With a couple of young boys we used to slaughter, myself and Alan Main, David McCune. Used to slaughter David McCune because he had Dave written on his neck, just so people could remember his name. So we had as a goalies, we had a great laugh. We weren't involved in the field players. That's the last thing goalies want to do, is be involved with him. But no, we never really done very much with him. We'd occasionally be involved in drills and all that sort of stuff, but nah, I think we just stayed out of the way. We just done our own thing. A lot of times as well, for the goalkeepers, we were out early training because we only did one pitch. the young boys were maybe on it first, so the first team kind of trained later and the goalies trained a wee bit earlier. So we were kind of more doing our stuff early. So we always were out. So we never really get involved in all that madness that was going on. And hey, you know what? It must have worked because the pre-season must have been good. We did have a genuinely good pre-season that year. And, that's always sets you up for a good season if you have a good pre-season. So maybe that's the way forward. I don't know.
So, yeah, Marcio Maximo leaves early on in that season, and then Davy Hay took over. And before that, it was sort of between yourself and Alan Main for the number 1 jersey. But as soon as Davy Hay came in, that was you. You were sort of the more stick-on number 1 keeper. Did you feel your game, even though you were 28 at the time, did you feel your game was coming on more and more each week now that you had that consistency of playing all the time, unlike you did at Hearts?
Definitely. Roy Baines was fantastic in just picking wee things and watching games. It was great because that was really television was having a bigger impact, and you could watch more of your games. So you'd be able to record. I think it was the Satanta at the times that was in. So a lot of games are live, a lot of extended highlights. So you could sit down, you could watch them, and Roy would say to me, "Why don't you go and watch that and see what you think?" Or you'd have a wee idea about just wee basic things about even how you get off the ground and all that sort of stuff. And Roy gave me so much confidence, and he always just cared, just always keep concentrating. That's the thing. It's different, probably different being at Hearts playing at that time, because Livingston were, if you think about it, a wee bit down the league at that time. You're probably getting less to do at Hearts. So, every mistake you ever made was always kind of, you'd see it straight away. Whereas at Livingston, you're probably getting more to do. And generally, goalkeepers at bottom league make more mistakes, but they kind of sometimes can be hidden a wee bit. But I found that I was more involved in games when I came to Livingston, and definitely felt as if I could get more confidence coming for crosses and all that kind of stuff,
Just sort of quickly, last wee thing on Marcio Maximo and the difference between him and Davy Hay. We've heard a couple of stories about Davy Hay having to come in at half-time during the first game of the season, sort of the team out and stuff. But what were the sort of main differences between his, Marcio Maximo's team talks and Davy Hay's? Was there anything sort of, obviously the language barrier was probably a bit different, but was there any sort of staggering differences?
I think confusion. I think it's probably one of the words I would use, is that, Maximo used to give us a lot of confusion. So people weren't unsure. Whereas Davey used to come in and just go, do this, do that, do that. End of story. And then the guys listened to this and they thought, right, okay, that's simple. It might have been very similar to what Brazilian guy was trying to say, he just couldn't get it across to people. So therefore people walking out changing room going, what does that mean? Let's be honest. Some of the guys at Livingston at the time weren't the brightest, right? Half of them couldn't speak English either. So, and, do you know what I mean? But David Hay walking in and goes, do this, Derek do that, you do this, and you do that. End of story. That's how people then knew, right, okay, we get it now. And that's probably how David just carried on the season that way. Was just, do this. You know what you're good at, you do that. And probably the Brazilian didn't understand that at that time, because he hadn't been in Scotland enough to know these players that were here and what they could be, what they are good at. And I suppose a good manager, a good experience that knows his players, can identify wee things in each player and say, this is all I want you to do.
Right, so let's give the fans what they want and move on to the CIS Cup run of the 2003-04 season. So we reached the semi-final by beating Queen's Park, Dundee United and Aberdeen, all away from home, I may add. The draw gets made, you see it's Dundee. It's sort of, obviously you've avoided the Old Firm, you've avoided Rangers, but I always remember that Livingston struggled against Dundee in the league. So how much did the previous games against Dundee come into your mindset when you're going into that semi-final?
I don't think they did, actually. I think there's obviously the administration going around, so that was probably in our mind more than anything else. But Dundee had some really good players, on their game. They were lively, they were dead problematic, and it was a very nail-biting sort of affair, but we always knew we could beat them. In a one-off game away from home, I think when you got to Dundee, the slope in the park, all that kind of stuff, it does make a big difference. It really does, and they know how to play it. And I know we kind of didn't always play well against Dundee, but probably that game is probably I think I've had a couple of saves to make in the game, but there was nothing in the game at all. The game could have went anyway, but let's be honest, you're pulling Dundee out at a semi-final stage, you're delighted, aren't you, when you know that one of the old firms in the other half of the draw. So you take anyone apart from the old firm.
You mentioned the administration there, like we won't go too much into it because we sort of covered it with previous guests and stuff, but obviously we beat Dundee because of that last minute Derek Lilly penalty. What was the sort of feeling like? Was that victory a wee bit sweeter knowing that you had come over this massive hurdle of an administration announcement that day? Like, what was just the feeling like? Was it more of a relief, or were you just thinking like, or was the administration just completely out your head at full time?
I think it was relief. It was definitely just the relief of knowing that game and the money that will be generated from that game, getting to the cup final, could end up paying the wages of players to the end of the season, and also giving us a better window for ourselves as players as well, because who knows what would happen with the club. You know, as soon as you get your name as a cup winner, suddenly managers think, you know what, the players have got a wee bit of something about them. That's a player that we could work with. So you're putting yourself in a window, but it was relief. It was probably the following day, I think it's sort of sunk in for a lot of players that, you know, you're going to play in a cup final. And for a lot of these guys, they've never done it before. You know, maybe some of us had been around cup finals and whatnot, but we certainly haven't been to one, or most of us haven't won one either. So, you know, this was an opportunity. I think it was the following night, the game, I think it was, wasn't it? Rangers Hibs. And I think I remember hearing every single Livingston fan and every single Livingston player shout when I'm sitting in my living room watching the game and Hibs win. Do you know what I mean? Because, you know, yeah, the answer, we're not playing Rangers, so, you know, we've got a right good chance here. So it was probably at that point, after the game, you think to yourself, we've got a right good chance of winning this now, you know?
So in terms of the cup final itself, right, I've heard so many different rumours about them. I just want to know if they're true or false, right? So the first one, I read somewhere that the Hibs players wore T-shirts underneath their strips saying CIS Cup winners. Do you know if that one was true or not?
I would probably say I don't have a clue about that. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. I hope they did.
I know. I was actually sort of hoping that they would.
To be fair, it wouldn't surprise me because they were a bunch of wee cocky fuckers, you know what I mean? And they thought they could just turn up. They came all out with their fancy hairdos and everything. Everyone had blonde tips and red stripes and all that, and they thought this is going to look good in the photo afterwards. So it wouldn't surprise me if they did have the T-shirts on underneath, but more for them, innit?
Nah, we'll just say they didn't get up them. And secondly, I read in a book about...
What, you read a book?
I know. I've read 4 pages of this book. It said, I had an interview with Stuart Lovell, and he said that he done a whip round among the squad and bet Livingston to win the cup. At the time, there was no SFA rules against doing so, but and he used the winnings to pay for like celebrations because the club couldn't really afford to pay out a big bonus because they needed all the money they could get for dealing with the administration. So was that true as well?
I would say part of that is true because I never saw a drink off of Stuart Lovell. But he did say, he did say that. I think you're right. This is all before people were allowed to bet on players and games and all that sort of stuff, right? So, you know, I think we came back from Aberdeen and we're sitting with, we've just won in extra time. Lee Mako scored a stunner, and he came on the bus, and I used to sit across with Stuart, and he went, you know, mate, he's like, 20-1, we are to win the cup. I'm like, that'll do nicely. So, and I know Archie used to bet the blinking, I don't know, 11, but he was like that, 21, I'm going to back it. And he did. So he tells me. But he never once bought us around that night or any other time. So, fair play. And Archie would have, I'd bet Archie would have put probably 100 quid on that, up to 100 quid. You know, but no, and just to clear up another point, we did get a good bonus for that game. You know, the administrators, they knew how important it was, and they were great. They were fantastic, and all the players were well rewarded for their efforts for that game and the semi-final and all that. And all credit to the guys at the time, you know, because the players really appreciated it as well, you know. All the hard things that have been on for those few months, you know.
So during the game, I can't really remember you having to do too much in terms of like actual clear-cut chances from Hibs, but how did you remain focused in such a massive game, especially when, as you said, like Livingston had 9,000 fans, but Hibs had 40,000. You were an ex-Hearts player. I'm sure they probably weren't the most welcoming to you. So how did you remain focused during that game?
I think when you play a Hampden, right, the crowd is so far away from you, from normal grounds, that you don't hear them calling your wife a bitch and all that sort of stuff and all those other things, right? So you are a wee bit detracted. But when we went 2-0 up and the Hibs fans were silent, then you heard them calling your wife a bitch and all that sort of stuff, right? But at that time, you know yourself, well, we're winning 2-0 here. As long as we don't have an absolute nightmare, we're going to win the cup. So the first half was quite edgy. There was nothing much. I think I made a save with Scott Brown that has somehow been missed out the highlights reel of this, right? And I'm raging about that because it was a really good save at the time. And then sort of the second half, I didn't have that much to do. They had a couple of wee half chances, but you know, you just know. You look at the end picture, and as soon as I think the early goal, as soon as we came out after half time, I think that settled everyone down a wee bit. And Davy Hay said to us at half time, he said, "Guys, you haven't done anything. You haven't turned up. You haven't done a single thing. You need to do better. Be more positive." You know, when you get your left back or your left midfielder breaking from a corner that they've had, going all the way up the park, and he's the furthest forward and those strolls in the back of the net. That's what Davy wanted. He wanted people to be more positive and take a chance and realise, go and win the game. Therefore, you don't sit back and just hope for the best. Just go and win it. So I think that goal settled everyone down, and then the next goal came quite quick, and Hibs had nothing after that. They really didn't. They had all the fancy players that they thought, oh, we'll just go and do our stuff, but they had nothing. Absolutely nothing. So it was dead easy to probably focus.
Did Jamie McAllister have a good record against you in training? Like, was it sort of like, did you think when you seen number 3 bombing forward, were you thinking like, oh, for fuck's sake, like anyone but him, or were you confident that he was going to score?
To be fair, I was expecting a bit of a nosebleed half him when he gets up in that kind of area. I don't think he scored too many goals in his time. I think I've probably scored more than him in his day. But you know what? It just, if you look at it, there's some great angles of that, and you see there's a great angle of his foot when he's planted his foot in the ground, and it's almost as if he's broke his ankle and slots it out of the goals. But you know, I don't trust left footers, right? I wouldn't give him an open goal for a yard because I always think they're always going to miss. But you know, brilliant, great finish, great composure, great timed run. Everyone was brilliant, and you know, at the end of the day, players are judged on doing things in big games. And things like that, it's going a one-on-one situation. You know, that could have been the goalkeeper saves it. All of a sudden, the goalkeeper becomes a hero. You know, Hibs come up and they score. So you take your chance when you get it. And, you know, good on Jamie for doing it. Fantastic.
Just want to ask quickly as well. I remember there was like a DVD released about after the game, and there was like footage of the open-top bus in Livingston, right? Now, the stadium was packed afterwards, but the open-top buses were going along the boulevard, and it just looked like there was no one there. Like, was that just a wee bit weird going through this like empty street of Livingston and then realising that everyone was already at the stadium?
It was almost the opposite end of the scale from when 1998 when Hearts won the Cup. And we're going along Gorgie Road and Princess Street, and there's like 300,000 people on the streets. And when I'm standing at the top of this open-top bus with my big jacket on, my hat, my woolly gloves, I'm thinking to myself, oh, this couldn't be further from Gorgie Road. And then when you get down into the ground, there's a different kettle of fish. I think probably a lap of the stadium when the open-top bus would have probably been a better idea.
So obviously there was the infamous party at the stadium with David McNamee on the bike and stuff. But how much were the players allowed to actually just let go that night? Because a couple of days later we had a game against Aberdeen that another trip to Hampden was on the cards if we'd beat them. So what was David Hay quite good at letting you enjoy the win for a day or two, or was it literally a couple of drinks straight home?
I think he was fine. He just said, guys, go and enjoy this. There's nothing, you're never going to get another chance to enjoy it. I think our game was Thursday night, I think it was maybe. It was on Sky, was it at Livingston, I think?
Yeah.
Or was it? I think it was. It was a replay. Well, it was a replay, I think, a few weeks ago. And David was like, "Please go and have a good time." And to be fair, a lot of the boys they're not daft. I think I went home, but I think I left there about maybe 1 o'clock or whatever it was. And we ended up winning that game on the Thursday night, 1-0, I think. So probably one of the worst games in history that Sky have ever actually put on. So
one of the best goals ever, though.
Exactly. So that's you only get one opportunity to win a cup, and it's important that the guys with a family as well is to enjoy it. And it's great to meet all the other players' wives and families and mums and dads and all that sort of stuff and kids. That it's important because they've supported you as well throughout the journey, and it's as much for them as it is for your own self, But it's great. It was a great party, and I don't really remember much of it, to be honest, because I was steamboats.
Okay, so let's move a wee bit. So the start of the 2004-05 season seen the club taken over by Pierce Flynn, and he controversially replaced David Hay with Alan Preston, who was sacked by the November of 2004 after a run of 7 successive defeats in the SPL. Now, we've spoken to quite a few players about Alan Preston. They seem to like proper love him, really. Did his management not really suit the players, or was it down to personnel, or can you talk a bit about that?
No, I think everyone liked Alan Preston. He did. He did with the best he could with the hand he had, I think, at that time. A lot of changes, a lot of just new players coming in, and it was difficult. It was difficult for any manager coming in and changing. But also, you probably lost a good maybe 4 or 5 players of your squad who were instrumental in your squad. I think also with a few injuries, and it was difficult. And I think Alan did all right. As a manager, his training was fine. There wasn't a big difference, to be honest, between David Hay and Alan Preston and a few other managers. There's not much of a difference. I think sometimes the mix just isn't right. And managers can never predict when they bring in players whether it's going to work. So you're gambling all the time with new players. Sometimes you take safe options and think that will work for me, and it doesn't work. And these things are sometimes just gambles. And Alan was unlucky that it just didn't work out for him.
Then Richard Gough came in. Things didn't really change until the signings of Eric Delamo and Hassan Kashul, and the club went on an outstanding winning streak. Before we ask about those couple of last games of that season, we were surprised to hear a couple of Hassan's ex-teammates say he was a bit of like an introvert and kind of kept himself to himself. Did you have any kind of proper dealings with him? Do you know, what was he like?
No, not really. He just floated in one day and kind of said that he was wanting to take all the free kicks and take all the set pieces and almost make cameo appearances for the bench, and wanted that standing ovation as he came off after 60 minutes and all that sort of stuff. And he was brand new. He was a cracking player. And sometimes I think when players who have played at a really high level come to your club, which is maybe not a sexy club or whatever, they come in with this big attitude, and a lot of times I find they just want to play football. They just want to come in and show what they've got, because there's ultimately an end goal for these guys, and most of that end goal is to try and get a move back up the way. And if they come and mess about and pretend to be Billy Big Bollocks, then you're not going to get anywhere. And players see through that, and all of a sudden managers can rely on these guys. And he was great. He came in for, half a dozen games or whatever it was towards the end of the season. To be fair, he was fantastic. He really was. Couldn't get the ball off him sometimes, but fair enough.
So the team managed to avoid relegation on the last day of the season against Dundee. I know you kind of meant we asked you about keeping concentration at Hampden, but obviously that was last day of the season. Fans a lot closer to the pitch. So what was it kind of like for your concentration on that huge game to stay up?
That was probably one of the biggest games that I've ever played in for the actual enormity of it, and the place was packed. Dundee was empty that day because all the Dundee fans came down. And, you just learn, you just learn. And this is the thing, when you play more games, like we've talked about at the start of the season, if you play more games, you learn to deal with situations, and you learn yourself, and you've got a good coach who's telling you to concentrate, these are the things you need to focus on. And I suppose if a manager does that with all the players, if that's all they're focused on, then it takes them away from the other things that can be distracting, getting involved with the crowd and all. How many players do you see shouting back at the crowd, and then all of a sudden they get sent off or something like that? So, you just learn to deal with it. Sometimes you can shut everything out because it's so noisy. When I used to play reserve football and there used to be 50 fans there, I used to hear everything. And it was kind of distracting sometimes. And whereas in these bigger games, you can kind of hold it together, I think, a wee bit.
So your final season of your first spell with the club was, again, no fault of your own, by the way, one of the worst in the club's history, with the team finishing on 18 points out of 36 games due to some woeful recruitment by Paul Lambert. How frustrating is it as a goalkeeper just pretty much pulling off save after save and the defence never really learning from mistakes or getting better?
I think that was probably one of my worst seasons just in general. Just everything about it just didn't quite click. Paul Lambert, who, fantastic player, came in, first managerial job, had very simple ideas. His training was very simple, things that everyone was used to. Good. I enjoyed his training. Some boys never enjoyed it, but then that's just swings and roundabouts, isn't it? And I don't know whether or not he was the one that was maybe signing the players or whatever, or whether it was Pierce Flynn who had his eye on, let's bring in these players to try and sell them on. But it was maybe not within Paul Lambert's hand, and which a hand he got almost, because some of the players that were kicking about, they were just not good enough. Ultimately, they weren't good enough, and you could see that there wasn't any continuity within the team. It was chopping and changing all the time. And I remember Paul Lambert. There was a lot of young kids coming through as well that were good players, but just didn't have the experience that they needed. And Paul Lambert came in and he played in a couple of games, and you could see he got the ball, and then he would maybe get it from the left midfielder, take it, and he's going to open up on his right hand side, and the right back is miles behind him. He's not ready to go yet, and Paul Lambert's like, come on, you need to anticipate this is going to happen. And he thought maybe that some of the players should have been better and thought a bit more like some of the players that he played with in his career. And trying to get that across, I don't think really came into it. And I think Mark probably was a wee bit frustrated because he could still play better than some of the players who were on the park. The only thing he never had was his legs. And by the way, what a top player. See, in training, when he was playing in training, couldn't get ball off him. He was the most competitive manager in training because he also expected, and he was trying to tell these young players playing in the middle of the park, guys, come on, you need to do this, you need to do that. And ultimately, it's ability at the end of the day, isn't it? You may have a great attitude and want to do things, but if you can't do it, you can't do it. And some of the players that year, we did all right, but we were just no good enough. And when you're not scoring goals and you're conceding loads of goals, and your players are coming in and out, foreigners are coming here, left, right, and centre, that's not a good recipe for staying in the league. And it shows you, because Paul Lambert's done really well in his managerial career, that he certainly has got all the attributes to be a good manager. I just think he probably came into a team where maybe he wasn't picking or pulling the strings with regards to the signings of players and who he really wanted to bring in. And because remember, we were going through a cost-cutting exercise as well at that time. We were getting rid of players, we were bringing in younger players on very low wages. And that doesn't mean you get a smaller or a lesser standard player, but generally it does, doesn't it? But that was probably one of the worst seasons of my career. Do
you think Lambert had too long compared to like Flynn kind of cutthroat with previous managers, or do you think that was enough time to really know that it wasn't going to work? I don't know.
That's a tough one to. I think Pierce Flynn probably backed his man as probably much as he could. I think that ultimately results count. And when you're sitting bottom of the table, I think you're not winning many games. It's difficult for an owner to sack his mate who's a manager, really. if he doesn't really have, unless he has to really do it, and he probably felt that was probably just the time it had to happen, And every player's got to take responsibility. This is the thing: when managers get sacked, ultimately it's the players, that haven't done something right, and that's unfortunate, and that's just the way it goes.
After Livingston's relegation, you decided to move on to Dunfermline. However, you were hit with some serious injury problems during your time at the Pars, but you've seen sense and you came home to join the Masoni Revolution. We had Roberto Landi in charge at the time. So whose training do you think was more unorthodox? Was it Landi or do you think it was Maximo?
It was definitely Maximo's. I think a lot of things that people, when Roberto Landi came in at the start, was he was a goalkeeper, right? Now, I know what it's like being a goalkeeper, try to tell an outfield player what to do. So see, when you're the manager dealing with players who have played the game for a few seasons, that's difficult for these guys to take you seriously. But his results are there, and his training was different because you had all these wee Italian guys that were top players, that were great. They'd all played in the Italian leagues. Couldn't tell you their name, they couldn't speak a word of English, but they could get guys to play. And and it worked. It did work for a good period of time at the start of that season. And, I think just circumstances maybe just weren't the right. And we all know that wasn't the right. So, but, I enjoyed it. I liked him. He was very critical of the goalkeepers at that time. I think what was his name? Pierre Martin, I think it was, who... By the way, there wasn't a mirror that he walked past without he looked in,
Handsome big boy, like.
Oh, I got all the attributes to be a supermodel, but just his head was messed up. No, he was. Do you know what? To be fair, he was a good lad. He was. He had a spring on him that I wish I had at that time, and. I think they were hoping. I think that was another one of those players where we were hoping he could come in, do really well, and they could maybe sell him on for a few quid. But as soon as all the problems started, his head went right up his backside, and he wasn't interested after that. I don't think. I always remember because one of the games I played, Roberto Landi said to me when I signed, he says, "You're going to play in the cup games." I went, "Fantastic, that's great," because at that time. Pierre was playing in the league games, and I went, okay, because I hadn't played for a year. So we pulled St Johnstone, my first game for over a year, St Johnstone in the League Cup at Almondview, and I think we won 1-0, and then we got drawn against Celtic, right? We got drawn against Celtic at Parkhead, and Roberto came and he says, "Hey, remember I said you play?" Right? And Pierre was raging. He was absolutely raging because he thought, "Oh no, I want to play Parkhead tonight." And I'm like, get up, you mate, sorry. So I'll never forget that. He was absolutely raging at me because he was doing the warm up and all that sort of stuff, and you could see he just wasn't bothered. He's like, "I'm going to give him the worst warm up of the planet ever." Hold on, I'll look at the crowd and all that and wave to everybody.
You mentioned in an interview recently with a West Lothian football-based podcast that are obviously not as cool as us. Now you were out of football for a while before rejoining. You had a chance to join Queen of the South. Did you regret your decision coming back to Livingston when it was clear we were being run by absolute fannies, basically?
No, I thought to myself it was the right move at the right time. I've got great affection with the club, I really have. And at that time, there was loads of things going on, and I'd just come back from an injury. There was personal life issues and all that sort of stuff. And I felt it was the right move for me and for my family and all that sort of stuff. And I would never regret. Probably, to be honest, I think probably my biggest regret prior to that was probably signing for Dunfermline and the way that worked out, and that was just the way it was. Livingston at that time wanted rid of me because they wanted me to take a massive wage cut and things like that, and I had a clause in my contract I could leave, and I was actually being frozen out of Livingston a wee bit before I left to join Dunfermline. That was just the way football is, you know what I mean? That's if they want rid of you, just tell you to go and train yourself and all that kind of stuff. And I always wanted to come back because I always felt as if, we could do something at Livingston. I always felt there was always something there that if they were run correctly, things could go well. And you can see what's happening now, So there's obviously something in there that works. And no, I don't regret coming back to Livingston at all. In fact, probably the couple of years I was there was probably two of the best years of my career, even though all the carry on. It was entertaining, let's say. It always gave me something to talk to my missus about when I come home. And I love getting involved in all this, writing letters to bodies and governing bodies and all that sort of stuff. I think it's great when you see some of the idiotic things that come back and some of the carry on with chairman and all that sort of stuff. I love it because you talk about these stories further down the line, and it's great. It's fantastic. I don't know if I mentioned in the last podcast, but we had that mad chairman, obviously, and we had a meeting, and I actually recorded the meeting. That was me, myself, Dave Mackay, and Paul Eggery. I thought, I'm going to have this guy on tape, and he threatened to sack me because I was speaking to the SFA I was speaking to the PFA, and I was a member of the PFA. I'm like to Fraser, my shot. Oh, here we go, Fraser. I've got this dafty on tape. That's the stuff. And I'm like, brilliant. Get up. Don't try and threaten me with that crap. And no payers and all that sort of stuff, And I thought, you know what? This is the problem. These guys think they get away with murder and the way they treat players and all that stuff. And that doesn't happen now. You can't do that now. Sorry, that was me getting sidetracked because I just remembered something.
No, that's brilliant. I've got sort of just a quick question on Musoni. Like, see your sort of first dealing with him. Could you tell from there that this guy was just clearly an absolute melt? Or did he hide 100%. It? Like, was he quite charming, or was he just like total fanny straight from the straight?
He was a bit of a fanny right from day one. Even when he came over in training one day, first day I was getting battered, absolutely killed when he came over, and he was so smart and walking on the grass with his Gucci shoes and all that kind of carry on. And you're like, oh mate, seriously, you're a bit of a wet rag, to be honest. If you're a bit of a sleazeball, that way. And I thought to myself, I'm not taking you at all. And, I don't know about you guys, but there's something about some Italians you just don't trust in it. But you don't want to say too much in case they've got mafia links and they're going to end up putting horses' heads in your bed and things like that. Also, I'm trying to get a contract, you know what I mean? So I'm going to try and be nice to the guy. But, as soon as things started going tits up, I was like, oof, you're getting it, mate. And I think there was a lot of people like that. There was a lot of reporters phoning me and asking me stories and things like that I thought I might as well tell you. All these information coming to papers. Why not? Because people up in the SFA need to know this is happening. Because it's easy for a chairman to say, we don't have any problems, but clearly there was major problems and people just ignored it, and that was a problem with the players.
And finally, on the season, you obviously saved the penalty in the last minute to secure the point required to seal for the championship. But then you left straight afterwards. Was there no chance of you staying? Did Boland try and keep you for the second division? Or?
Nah, we had a conversation the following Monday morning, and they were always trying to. I was on a good wage there, and they tried to renegotiate terms with some of the players about maybe extending a contract for another year, taking a wee bit, maybe 25% less in the money. And for me, I thought, you know what, this is a good time for me just to call it a day. It was a great way to finish, just to get them back in the second division. And it was a good way to end my Livingston career. Just because some of the players had opportunities to leave at the start of that season as well. Because you're demoted, you have got an opportunity, you could probably leave and get picked up. And a lot of the players stopped by the club because they kind of felt it was an opportunity to try and help them as well, through everything. And fair play for all the boys that stuck around that year, because some of them went on and actually helped them back up into the first division, and which was good.
So before we get your five-a-side team, I'm just going to open up some questions to the boys. Boys, have you got anything you want to ask, Tom?
There's been a bit of banter going on the last kind of few months since we started doing this with the other Whistler and Best Football Content podcast, and there's been a few chats about a charity five-a-side game. I think we could easily make it 6-a-side, and we don't really have a goalkeeper, so it was more of a request, see if you'd be up for it.
I hung my gloves up a long time ago and vowed I would never play. Well, I played in 2 games the other year, but I vowed I would never play any sort of goalkeeping, whether it's 5-a-sides, 7-a-sides, or 10. So see, when I go down there and play 7-a-sides with my pals, I'm like, away you go, I'm not getting in the goals. Spent 20 years doing that crap. I'm going to make it run a bit. So absolutely no chance. But if you're looking for a nifty sort of centre half and get around and cover and mash a few centre forwards, then I'm up for that.
Definitely.
That's the deal. Like that's the deal.
Let's make it 7s. I'm sure Colin McMenamin will join in as well. I remember 17 going like that.
I was going to say, can you put Colin in the other team, because I wouldn't mind booting him.
Well, you could do that anyway.
So obviously, Roddy, you were in in that League Cup final winning season. David Fernandez was there, and I just have this sort of thing. So obviously, as a goalkeeper, you're like shooting practice and whatever. Was David Fernandez like a wee dick, like try to chip you all the time or anything like that? Or who was the guy that you never really kind of quite got on with in training? Like you maybe got on with him like well outside of training, but who was the one that always tried to take the piss at you?
Well, to be fair, David Fernandez wouldn't want to chip you in training, because there was a rule that if an outfield player tried to chip you in training and you caught it, you used to boot the ball as far away as you could. And the rule was they had to go and get it. So at Livingston, you could boot it out of the fence down in the Almondview River, right? And David Fernandez, he wouldn't run the length of himself if he didn't have to. So there was no way he was taking that gamble by trying to chip you for the fear of him having to run 20 yards. So, no, to be fair, there was, goalkeepers and outfield players and strikers, when you're doing all these things, there's always a competition. And it's fantastic, and that's one of the things you miss, because you think you know a player, you think you know where he's going, you can line him up and all that sort of stuff, and a good player, just to be honest, I don't know how the Barcelona goalkeeper gets on, right? But he's not saving many shots, let's be honest, right? So, but the outfield players, we used to have great banter, and there was always competition. Shooting was always a competition for players, because a manager would always say, you scored a couple of good goals the other day in shooting, and, as a goalkeeper, you're saving everything, And, that was one of the things I always missed, was that there wasn't really any dicks, I would say I'd probably got on with most people reasonably well until they did something to me, and then I smashed them in a cross or something like that, and cross me finishing. And that's probably what called me and slaughters the goalkeepers. Hey, if you get it away, you're going to get hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
Go on, Povey.
Obviously, this week, big week for the club and that, and I'm just wondering if you've got any advice if you were to give any advice to the players in the lead up to this final, what would it be?
I would say just go for it. Trust your ability. Trust what the manager's saying to you, because obviously he's watched the team. He looks at the way they play, and all it takes is for 4 or 5 of their players to have the games of their life where they match or better the opposition. And the goalkeeper, whoever it is in the day, to have the match-winning saves, and that's all it takes. You might just get a goalkeeper that makes a couple of good saves at key times in the game, and then your striker scores a goal and you win the games. And I would just say, trust your ability, trust what the manager says, and just go for it. Don't leave and think, what if this had happened, what if that had happened? You've got to be positive, and this could be the only cup final you ever play at. I was lucky to be involved in quite a few cup finals, and it's the difference between winning it and losing it. You remember the ones you win and you try and forget the ones you lose. You really do, because you don't know when you're going to get another opportunity. And that's what I would say, is you don't know when this is going to come around. And to have it against St Johnstone in a stadium that's dead, it's not the old firm. It's a great opportunity, but you can't blame the crowd noise for not hearing things and all that sort of stuff. it's a game where you think to yourself, I'm going to go and do it and just go and win it. Go and win it.
Mm-hmm. You think we will? Do you think, what are you feeling? I take it
I think we will. Yeah, I think we've got a great chance. I don't think there's a lot between the teams. I think both teams can be equally as good and equally as bad. And there might be a mistake. It could be some. You just don't know what happens in a cup final. Emotions are there. Players could get sent off, whatever. But just stick to the game plan. And believe in it, and then make the most of things like corners. Don't waste things like an in-swinging corner. Go and attack it. Get a good delivery for the guys that are taking it. Get that ball into areas and allow your defenders and your attackers to go and attack it. And just, Hampton's a big pitch. It's a soft pitch as well. It can be quite draining. Use your energy wise. Don't be chasing after things you don't have to chase after, because, even in the 2004 Cup final and things like that, you saw that it drains players. So, just make sure you take your opportunities and put them under pressure. Make their goalkeeper make mistakes. Go and pressure them. Go and put him under pressure his first couple of kicks and just.
Obviously, what was it? A couple of years ago, you came back and played in Keege's testimonial match. What was that like coming back and obviously, seeing Stuart Lovell, Derek Lilly, and sort of those old pals? And what was the night out like, if there was one?
It was a good wee party actually. That was great. It was good because you're mixing the old and the new. And a lot of these guys wanted to show some of the first team players that they still had a wee bit about them. They didn't have the legs, but they could still play, and it's probably some of them probably could still, given them, a couple of months of training and a better diet and whatnot, and shifting a couple of pounds, could probably have played a few minutes in the Premier League. But it was great. We sometimes just, it's funny, you bump into players every now and again when you go, maybe not so much in the last year, but it's amazing when the only time I was out of Lincoln Hamilton this year, I went to St Andrews and bumped into a couple of players I used to play with. And it's great, having all these wee catch-ups. And the thing about winning a cup, it's always something that will be, let's say 2024. Oh, a reunion? Yeah, let's have a reunion. And that could just be a day at the club, a meal at the club and a wee night out. And that's great because it just keeps people involved with the club as well, And I think the club want to make sure that they want to have ambassadors for the club that will come back and always kind of, put the club first as well, and tell people what a great club it is. And it's great because you can always come back and you're always guaranteed to meet somebody and meet you guys as well who kind of grew up through that as well, But it was brilliant. It was a nice game to play in for Keegan because he's a smashing guy and well deserved. He gave a lot to the club as well, and it was good catching up with a few of the boys for the cup winning team and on a couple of drinks,
So I think it's time for your five-a-side team.
I've got to say, right, I'm obviously going to be the sweeper keeper, right? That's me, definitely, right?
Yes.
Okay, so and then I was going to have Big Marvin in my team. Just purely for intimidation, right? If it's a wee five-a-side team, right, the big man's going to be battering guys against the side of the walls and all that sort of stuff. So straight away, we're going to probably put the team we're playing against down to probably 4 men anyway. So that's it. And then who else? I would have definitely Stuart Lovell, right? Because I've seen the size of one of those wee circles in the five-a-side pitches, right? No doubt nowadays Stuart wouldn't be able to run outside that wee circle, so you can just get him in there. He can just control that wee bit, set the passes up. And I think my 2 forwards, I think I've got to have David Fernandez in it, right? Because he'll time waste in the corner when we're winning. And he's not having to run back too far either. You know what I mean? If we can keep him in their half. And then the other player I think I would have to have would be Snoddy, definitely. Because you could probably give Snoddy the ball at any point and take on 25 men, couple of flicks out the seat and then smash into the bottom corner. And we could all go, "Oh, you're definitely a £20 million player, wee man." So I think that would be my five-a-side team. And I dare any other team to take us on because we'd win.
Brilliant.
That's amazing. All players from the first spell though, like, were you not tempted to have Lee Griffiths in there maybe?
Do you know what? There was a few. Lee Griffiths, I think, is probably, when he came into Livingston first team, some of the things he done in games was unbelievable, by the way.
Oh, yeah, no.
And I'm like, what? I remember him smashing a goal for 25 yards. He flicked out a couple of boys on a volley. And he was my other guy. If I had a subs bench, he would definitely be on my subs bench. Definitely, because I think he's a fantastic player. Great ability, great left foot. I just couldn't trust him to turn up sometimes. You know what I mean? That was probably going to be my... and also, we can't have him being overweight as well, so that's another thing. He needs to kind of sort himself out if he wants in my team. But definitely his first sub.
Good sub to have. Good sub to have. You're the first player that's put your cell in as well. That's class.
100%.
You think you're a better goalie than Alan Main then, aye?
We're from different eras. Let's just say that.
Nah, but cheers for coming on, man. That's
brilliant,
so
guys.
class.
Brilliant. Loved it. Hopefully
Cheers,
we get the result on Sunday.
Roddy.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Roddy.
Thanks very
Brilliant.
much.
Take care now.
See you later.
Thank you.
It's March 2004. I'm kicking back in my parents' living room on a Sunday morning, listening to Franz Ferdinand's debut album on minidisc. Soccer AM is producing watchable content. Mark Zuckerberg launched Facebook, and it's a month old. Livingston are in a cup final, and I've yet to kiss a girl. Flash forward 16 years and 11 months, and so much has changed. I'm hoovering my own gaff on a Sunday morning. I'm streaming Taylor Swift's new album on Spotify through futuristic wireless headphones, and Soccer AM is a disease on television. Two things, however, are exactly the same. Livingston are in a cup final, and I'm still a massive virgin. The boys are now going to tell us their memories of that faithful day in March 2004. Povey, take it away.
All the way back then, what was I? I was the Shermanator. That's what I was. I was talking to virgins. I've got the infamous photo of me with a cup, and don't know what is going on with the hair. A lot's changed for me as well. At least I had hair back then, eh? Jeez. But so the Shermanator, he got on the supporters bus, and this is really mental. It's like obviously the nerves were all there, but I sat on a Werther's original or some sort of toffee or something. I didn't know, but the whole way to Glasgow, I was just like, I was grossed out by this toffee on my arse, you know? So by the time I got off the bus and all that, I was scraping it off. And then this has just come to me, actually. What happened after that was I met my mate who I was going to the game with. He'd got a lift with his dad. He was actually pissed off because we'd got tickets beside each other, but actually, on hindsight, where we got the tickets was more expensive, but it was great view, you know. So I met him as we're walking towards it, going up the stairs. You know, there's a Sky Sports News camera, right? And the boys like, because I used to take a Marv banner, a banner that said Marv. I used to take that to the games, right? So I think the Sky Sports News boy had spotted me, and he was like, "Oh, go and sing us a song and hold the banner up, you boys." And as I say, like, you know, 15-year-old Shermanator and Big Al, the two of us holding the banner, quiet as you, so quiet, going, Marv, Super Marv, man. And you could just see the disappointment in the cameraman's face, like, and he was like, "All right, thanks, boys." It's actually the worst approach to going to this final ever. You know, toffee on the arse, embarrassed myself in front of a camera, but obviously the game happened. It was amazing. Went back to the stadium after, which I'm sure one of you guys will talk about. But that was actually quite a traumatizing beginning to the game, the nerves and everything. So
Owen, well, to be fair, I don't know why I'm saying just you, because your memory will probably be similar to mine. But Owen, what are your memories of that day?
I highly doubt that my memory is going to be very similar to yours, because my memory kind of stops from entering the stadium to getting home. So, well, like yourself, we got the supporters bus through to the game, stopping off on a pit stop in a pub in Motherwell. So we had a lock-in. So we arrived at the pub maybe about 10:30, 11:15 or something in the morning, and the pub was open for I think they booked it as a wake for a funeral or something like that. So me and obviously yourself and my dad, and my pal Stephen Carey, who posts a lot on our Twitter and that. Basically, we just got absolutely slaughtered. As much cider as we could chuck down our necks at the time, because like you, Liam, I was a wee virgin at that time, so cider was the drink of choice. Basically, got absolutely pissed before the game. Go to the game, and I think the first half was really kind of a non-event, really, but second half kicks off, we get that early goal. You're kind of in disbelief after that, and then of course Jamie McAllister tucks away the second one. I barely kind of remember that. I remember Lovelly lifting the cup and just being like, "Is this what it feels like to support an actual successful cup winning team? Because this feels fucking amazing." And then obviously then from there memory goes hazy again. And then we get the bus back through to Livingston, and then I think we got back to the house, and Dad was like, let's head down to the stadium. Everybody seems to be going down to the stadium. So we jumped in the car, and I think we sat in about a 3-mile backlog heading towards the stadium. We look out towards the stadium, there's the open top bus, and my dad's like, "This is too busy, let's go home." So we went home, and there endeth my experience of the League Cup final. So my dad just couldn't be arsed sitting in traffic in front of all these people. So we basically just fucked off and then watched it on the telly with David McNamee on the bike, of course. Regardless of whether I remember much of it, it was still one of the best days as a Livingston fan, I think.
See your point there about Lovelly lifting the trophy. That just triggered a memory of like everyone looking at each other like, what the fuck are we meant to do? Like, it was the weirdest sort of atmosphere, Like, all the elation had already happened when Jamie McAllister scored the second, It was sort of just a bit like, well, what the fuck's going on, like, when that happened,
I remember as well, like, the songs that we were singing, of course, the classic "We Can See You Sneaking Out" after, like, 82 minutes, that kind of started, and then it's like, "Where's Your 40,000 Gone?" as well, which I think carried on for many league games against us. After that, after their crowds started declining again, the soulless place that Fester Road is. That was on the Sunday, obviously, and I was back at school on the Monday, obviously with a tremendous hangover. And I went to Balerno, so that's kind of in the Edinburgh sort of catchment area. So a lot of the people there were Hibs fans. So there's, all these Hibs fans, and then me walking in with my Livy scarf on Monday morning to school was just epic. A good feeling the following day. 17-year-old me turning up for high school with a hangover, but deservedly so for my Livy fan, as far as I'm concerned.
Jake, what about yourself? What do you remember from that day?
So it's a little bit hazy, not because I was pure pish, just because I was young as fuck. Now you're talking about it, things start coming back. I remember just the amount of confetti. Like, it was just absolutely everywhere, just non-stop, just gold just flashing before your eyes. And we got given flags that were like sat on the buses and stuff like that, which I actually brought to a game not long after that. And it was when we had quite strict security, and a guy was like, "You can't have this in here," and he ripped it off. He ripped it off the stick.
Aye.
And I was like sat. My dad was just like, I remember crying. I was really upset about it, and I was like, "It's not the same. It's holding up and wiggling it." So it was a bit
That was 5 years later, though, wasn't it? And you were still greeting.
Yeah. I was like, but the thing is, I was so young at the time, I wasn't going to bloody spear Stevie Crawford or whoever I was playing at the time. Like, but yeah, so yeah, I just went through my dad and my dad's pal from work. And I remember, I'm sure I had a wee tear at, when the first goal went in. It was such an amazing feeling. Yeah, like I say, I can't remember too much, but yeah, it was absolutely amazing. And we did go into the stadium afterwards. I can remember being beside the pitch, but honestly, I can't tell you too much about it, which is a really boring story for this podcast. And it was what an occasion, brilliant.
I'm the same with because the supporters bus took me back to the stadium after, took us back. And I'm the same as you. I remember me on a bike, but to be honest, just sort of, I think it was just singing songs and just being happy. You know what I mean? I don't remember anything specific as well, but it was an amazing sight, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I should have got my dad on, and then he would have been able to tell better stories, probably. Sorry.
Thomas, tell us your memories.
So I have a big confession to make here.
Oh, no.
I wasn't actually at the game. I didn't go. My now fiance went. She's a Celtic fan. Sat in the Livy end. One of my best mates, who's a Hibby, went. Sat in the Livy end. And I was sitting at home watching it on the telly. Now, obviously, I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Jake. The details are a little bit hazy of the game, given the fact that I was like 11 years old at the time. And I was probably bouncing up and down in the living room, but kind of what stood out for me was just waiting for my mate to get home. Lived in the corner from me, and being a big Hibby, him and his dad, big Hibbies. I just was waiting for him to get home to laugh at him, basically, because it was so class, and I think he gets fed up with me like banging on about it, and we all do. The Hibs fans hate it. I know they hate it, and of course I'm reteaming that, but it was brilliant, and that's how you can tell it still hurts them. It still hurts them because of how much they hate when we talk about it. But, I'm hoping to remember this one a bit better. Obviously, we can't go, which is a shame. But there's my confession. You can kick me out. You can take away my season ticket.
You're never coming back on here. I think my memory from it, obviously similar to Owen. I wasn't getting pissed because I think I was only about 11 or 12, but
Pussy.
I remember what?
Pussy.
I know. I remember getting the supporters bus through, and I remember that pub in Motherwell. I'm pretty sure the police turned up, and like we had to. So the pub was like sort of quite rowdy and that, and then the guy who owned the pub came through and was like, everyone needs to shut up because the police are at the door. And then this guy pretended as if he'd just got up and answered the door, and the police were like, oh, we've heard of a noise complaint. And the guy was like, well, there's no one here. And then as soon as the police left, they just started up again. Like, it was just so strange. In terms of the game, I don't remember much. I remember I've got a very vivid memory of, I think it was after the trophy presentation and all the players were on the pitch and like they're just passing the cup towards each other in the corner. And like it sounds shocking that I thought this, but like in my head I was like, is this it done? I think I enjoyed getting to the final more than actually winning it, because you were sort of like, oh, that's it now, like there's nothing more. Forgetting that we were in the Scottish Cup semi, but then, well, we were on the brink of it. But then again, I was so young and like, oh, Livy are the best team ever. So I was like expected. I was like, aye, of course Livy won the League Cup. Like, and we're going to win the Scottish Cup. And next season we're going to win the league. Like, I never really realised how much of a mental thing it was until I started getting older and sort of talking about it. I'll never forgive my dad for not taking us to the stadium. Like, obviously you said there wasn't much going on, but it was I was livid about that. And then Yeah, I went to Balerno as well, but there was no Hibs fans in my year. None. They were all Rangers supporters, or I think there was maybe a couple of Hearts fans, but yeah, I honestly I can't remember a single Hibs fan in my year at school. So I didn't even have that. I didn't even have that sort of enjoyment. And then Hannah told me a story that so a couple of weeks after we won the cup, Hannah was doing a play for her primary school, which was the same primary school I went to, the one I left to go to high school that year. And apparently Marvin Andrews came in halfway through the play with a cup.
What?
And like just unannounced. He just came in whilst they were performing it. Came in with a cup and just went, "Hello, I'm Marvin Andrews." So apparently
amazing.
Hannah's got a photo with the CIS Cup with the yellow and black ribbons with Marvin Andrews. She had no idea who he was up until she met me, and she has no idea what the League Cup was until she met me 6 years ago. So yeah, that's sort of me being negative again. But no, I remember the day being amazing and just like, yeah, it's just, and so annoying because that's the thing. We were all quite young. Owen was steaming, obviously, but that's the thing. Like, we should be planning what we're doing. Like, we should be planning our itinerary to go through to Glasgow. All of us should be meeting up. We should all be in the Livy End at Hampden. We should all be doing this.
Should have started drinking as well.
Well, I'd be drinking for now until Sunday, just to get my fucking liver back on track. I'm going full blown apeshit if we win this, like, and if we don't, I'm going full blown apeshit. Well, that wraps up everything quite nicely ahead of the Betfred Cup final on Sunday. I know for a fact that none of the players will be listening, but if they are, a massive good luck to them. Bring the trophy home from all of us here at the Almondview podcast. Make sure that you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at AlmondviewPod, all one word. And on Facebook and YouTube, just search for the Almondview podcast and make sure you follow us wherever you get your podcasts to get updated with new content each week. Thanks for listening. Forza Livy. Hope to see you all next week as Betfred Cup winners.